Alright, welcome back to the Supercoach Nuff channel. In this video we're going to preview round 16 of the 2025 NRL Fantasy season. So before we look at my team individually, we'll look at the who's hot, who's not list for most popular trade-ins, trade-outs. Just know that at the time of recording it's about 3 o'clock on Thursday Arvo, so still a fair bit of time before lockout, and I guess, hopefully some more late mail about ins and outs post Origin. So we'll do our best with the information we've got. So the hot list number one is Tallis Duncan. So he was one of my trade-ins last week, and absolutely cheering that he went off with the 75, I think it was. So he's about 500k now, which is a little bit on the expensive side. But looks like, he's pretty much got that edge position, locked in for the rest of the season. Maybe, people trading out Olaquatu can't afford to get up to Eli Katoa. Duncan could be a nice little stepping stone to an option like that. But yes, I mean, probably, for his ability, given that job security and that role, and his current price point, I think it's a pretty decent trade in. Jaden Campbell, so had one sort of down week, but bounced back on last weekend. So I still think, he'll end up being up there around number one for wing fullback, given that he's basically a half with the kicking and the like that he does. So yeah, I think you can comfortably bring him in. Jerome Hughes obviously doesn't have any more buys, so is an easy set and forget option in your halves for the rest of the season. Jack Bostock's an interesting one. So made a whole heap of cash last week. Has a monster break even, I think like negative 25 or something crazy. So there is potential, if you've got the trades, to bring him in, bank 2 weeks of cash rises, and then flip him in the round 18 buy. Yeah, I'm not looking there. I think there's a couple other little cash makers that we can take advantage of. And I guess my team's fairly well set with, cash as it is. So I'm probably going to forego it, but I can definitely see the argument for that. Herbie Farnworth, quite pricey at the moment. Pretty sure he's above 800k. See if I can load it up. I might have to actually go to the page. 814. Priced on a 61 average, averaging 63. So you're basically paying for what you get. I guess as long as you're covered for round 18 and you've got the money, wouldn't hurt to bring him in. Jed Stewart, so debutant winger at the Raiders. Job security seems pretty good given that Tamale and Hopewadi are out fairly long term. From all reports, Ricky had to be convinced by a lot of the other sort of people at the club that his young fellow was ready. So, probably being a bit hard on him in terms of his development. So I think there's a bit of potential for cash there. And definitely, if you're looking to downgrade to a bottom dollar option, he'll be one of the better ones going around. Eli Katoa, so I think, a fairly obvious target for the Olaquatus of the world if you've got the money to go up. Obviously, no buys, like what we said with Jerome Hughes, no chance of Origin. So, if you're looking for an edge moving forward, I think Eli Katoa is a great shout. Reece Walsh is an interesting one. Depends on the price point. I didn't mean to click that one, but that's okay. So priced at 35, break even at 35. So you can see from like his scores before his return, the other week that it's going to be around about that on average. So I guess he should cover the round 18 bye. Does have that bit of upside, but I guess you also have to be prepared for a bit of downside. Sifa Talakai, so getting a starting gig um, for at least a couple of weeks. The edge centre dual position's pretty good. I haven't looked at his price, but I imagine he'd be pretty cheap. Yep, 295. So should easily outpoint his 15 break even just from his work coming out of the backfield. Get rid of Herbie. So yeah, I don't hate it. I've probably seen worse moves than Talakai in. Isaiah Katoa, so obviously a keeper in the halves. Only downside is he doesn't play around 18. Um, so if you can cover that, I think you can bring him in. Karapani, so I think he's at a similar price to Talakai. Yeah, 295. Karapani was 290 from memory, 297. So yeah, I guess the upside of Karapani is probably the try scoring, whereas with Talakai it's more the work rate. Um, so I'd probably look at Talakai over Karapani. Although if you do need the coverage for round 18, Karapani is a good shout. Bo Fermor, so keeper in the centre. Obviously, the edge dual position is pretty handy for coverage as well. Yeah, bring him in. Ryan Pappenhausen, the third sort of Storm player on this list. So outside chance of origin, but likely not. So it's his price point. 641. So a little bit on the expensive side, given the break even of 56. Um, but, things like the 100-point return here suggest that there is that upside. And if you're willing to take the risk, why not? Just gave away my trade, but that's all right. Celessi Fiketti, so scored a nice try on the weekend. Might have sort of locked himself into a spot in the team with injuries to Radley, Egan Butcher. So doesn't play next week is the only issue. So it does depend on how many Roosters you've got in the team because of their bye coverage. They've all been very popular. I think I've got 3 currently at the moment, and that's probably the limit that I'm willing to go to, given that the potential for injuries and stuff means we don't want to have a lot of Roosters to cover for next week. Dylan Lucas is another keeper in the centres that's also eligible for the edge. So, yep, bring Dylan Lucas in. On the chopping block this week, Sav Tamale, out long term injury, makes sense. You could obviously go straight down to Jed Stewart, or if you've got a bit of cash, you could flirt with one of the keeper centre options potentially. Olaquatu out long term with an injury, so chop him again. Eli Katoa is a nice target. Talis Duncan if you can't afford to upgrade. Kalal Matangi is an interesting one. So it sounds like he's a week to week proposition. Um, so I think if he's out even this week, I'm probably going to trade. Um, but if he is playing, I think he's a keeper. So it's a tricky one. But I think yeah, it all depends on how it goes on Saturday afternoon. Hamish Stewart has probably done his job for us, so he can comfortably be traded. Jazz Tavanga, so HIA this week. They're on the bye anyway, so it's not like you're losing a player. And then does cover round 18, which a couple of the more popular hookers will not do. So I think Tavanga's a hold. Obviously, it is team dependent. King Togia, I think, did score all right on the weekend. I'll have a look actually how well he did score because I did chop him from my team. Um, yeah, scored a 46, so a little bit of a reset of the break even. But again, the price isn't going to get out of control. So if you can use that money wisely, I think that's a fair enough chop. Nathan Cleary, with the news that he's carrying a bit of a hamstring injury last night, or thigh injury of some description. On the bye this week, has the Bulldogs next week, and what's his break even? 76, so good chance that he could lose a bit more value. Plays Origin round 18, assuming that he's fit. Um, so, there's potential that we're just holding him for another 3 weeks without any return. So you may need the cash. Um, I don't hate it. You might just want to have a plan to get him back for the run home. Hirotti's gone down injured, so you can trade him. Ruben Garrick on the bye is a pretty useful centre wing fullback piece. Unless you're upgrading to a top line keeper, I think he's a hold. Fletcher Sharp is back named this week, so I would suggest holding. If you're worried about the round 18 buy and you're starting to make moves for that, it's probably understandable. Jackson Purdue, sorry, yeah, the Cowboys not going too well of late. Um, with his move into the 5'8" position, it's probably going to be a little bit rocks and diamonds. Um, but maybe one that you need to hold to round 18 and then trade afterwards. Lockie Hubner, so with the sort of injury cloud over Kalamatangi, maybe worth a hold. Maybe if you could sideways him to Duncan, I think that might be a viable option. Who knows? Um, but yeah, not sure what that's based on. I know he didn't score as well as I thought he would on the weekend. What did he get? He got 29, played 39 minutes. So, yeah, probably peaked in price. So, a fair enough trade. Isaiah Iongi, yeah, I think he's one we can look to, cash out or upgrade depending on the team. Toby Couchman, I think he's a keeper, so I would hold. Obviously, the edge role isn't ideal for fantasy, but still does the work and scoring the points. So probably, yeah, reluctant trade, but I'm holding. And Pasifiki Tonga, so I guess one you could hold. He will play round 18, which is probably the only reason why I'm considering holding him at this point, without any sort of reasonable options at a similar price point. So those are the trade-ins and trade-outs at the time of recording. For me this week, just doing the one trade, and it might seem a bit weird given that he's probably the only player who's not playing in my team this week. But I think Lawson's already peaked in price, only made 30k, but just hasn't looked very good on the wing, particularly under the high ball. Um, and the Dragons seem to be one of these teams where they're looking to shake it up a bit. Heard a bit of a good shout. Maybe Cody Ramsey is ready to go back in the NRL, which would be great to see. Um, so I've taken this opportunity to jump off and get in Jed Stewart. As I said, has decent job security. I'm not sure of the scoring ability. I haven't gone that deep in the analysis, but job security's there. Playing on a team that's going well, so there's always that chance of tries. And as I said, I think the fact that his old man as the coach is his harshest critic probably means that he is set and ready to go for this level. So, yeah, just doing the one trade this week. I do have the ability, though, to trade Kyle Matangi if need be. So if we go to the team, it's a bit easy to see. So, pretty much the full strength starting team. You might argue that Duncan could be replaced with Couchman. And obviously, Yowie and Cleary would have to come in somewhere. Saval is the obvious one. But, pretty decent team, 13 this week. Obviously, the watch is Matangi. If he is a late out, it's then pretty easy just to trade him straight to Katoa. Bank a bit of cash. But I won't lock that in because I'm not that interested in doing it. I prefer to keep Matangi, and Eli Katoa can come in a week or two. Um, I could flip Curran, for example, or if Couchman's really starting to leak points, could be that option. But they're pretty happy with the squad as it is in its current position. And I guess the other thing with Jed Shaw that's going to be super helpful is he will play round 18, and I do need a wing fullback. So um, I think currently as it sits, I've got 11 for round 18, with the plan being Donahue will be flipped to another half. So I need a half, and then I think I still need one more wing fullback. So basically, I'm going to see who I can get out of Pasifiki Tonga's money, plus whatever I have left over from the Donahue trade is the plan. So, um, yeah, so at the moment, assuming everything stays as is, that'll give me 6 trades plus the additional 8 coming to really hit it hard on the run home. Pretty well positioned around the top 5K, so exciting times ahead. In terms of captain, vice captain this week, just with the sort of cloud around Kalamatangi, um, decided to just keep it in the middle. So Terrell May, I think, is obvious captain. Um, Aaron Clark could potentially be a VC option with the Panthers a little bit undermanned and maybe a little injury or backup doubt over Payne Haas. Um, I mean, if Haas is out, we may have to do some trading and rejigging, but I guess someone like a Talakai will become super helpful in that situation. We could trade Pasifiki Tonga to Talakai without any issue. Um, or actually, it might be Karapani because I think we need the round 18 number. Talakai won't play round 18, so I think if someone like Haas is rested, Karapani in, Lucas Duncan will slide up. So there is a couple of outs if we need them, but if we can hold the trades, we certainly will and reassess. So yeah, that's the team for this week. Obviously, if you've got any questions, comments, thoughts, feel free to ask in the comment section below. Give us a like if you enjoy the NRL fantasy content. Subscribe for all the fantasy sports content on the channel. And other than that, we'll catch you in the next one.